Hilarious, I was muted. Good afternoon, 24-hour party people. I am Tim, the brand weaver. After many years of still struggling through COVID, I still can't work out how to unmute myself, but that's fine. I'm just human. We'll let it slip. You are listening to Branding for Breweries, the podcast that brings you the wisest, brightest, and most attractive people in the brewing industry to share their brain knowledge with you to help your brewery thrive, survive, and be the very best gosh darn tootin' thing it can be out there in the brewery world. And today is no exception, ladies and gentlemen. I am joined by Mr. Ben Walton. He is the founder of Honor Plate Growth. He has worked with a huge range of food and drinks companies and brands out there. And to be honest, what he doesn't know about online digital sales, emails is not worth knowing. And the show that we're having today is one of my favorite kinds of formats because it's going to give you lots of little value points that you can hopefully quickly scribble on a notepad. If you're driving, don't do that. Just commit it to memory, do it afterwards, and then actually apply it. It's all about giving you the value so you can go away and make these changes nice and quickly. So I've hyped him up. I've bigged up the value he's going to give. Let's hope he's going to deliver. Everyone, Mr. Ben Walton.
Oh, Ben. I mean, that was quite the hype up. So thank you, Tim. I'm not trying to live. I've got my microphone on, so I'm already winning from that point of view.
Dude, you have one up on me. It's fine.
But I think absolutely what you said is that and we've both spoken about this. Is it's trying to drop in just little bits that people can use. Is it the one thing they can learn? Just to power them on, or a little bit of reassurance. So I think that's the goal for this conversation. Basically, now we're all mic'd up that we can get our points across. And hopefully, just find a way of and often it's it's the small wins that make a little difference. And I would say this just as a general sort of catching point for everyone, and the reassurance is normally there isn't a massive thing you've missed because you're looking at this most days, so it's unlikely that you've missed this massive goldmine opportunity. So it's going to be more like, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. That's an interesting way of framing it. Or, why don't I do that? Or, we switched that off for a bit, but it sounds like maybe we should try and, persevere with it. I think it's more those bits. So that's where it's going to be. It's unlikely you're going to, obviously be great if you listen to this and go, oh my God, we did this and we 10 times it or whatever it was. But it's more like to be little, little compound wins, little marginal gains that add up to make a big difference.
Exactly, those scrappy wins. And so, Ben, before we start opening that Pandora's box of joy and value, could you maybe give us a greatest hits of Ben, like what you've been up to, what you've achieved, so people go, all right, I will give Mr. Ben and Tim 35 to 40 minutes of my well-earned time.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I guess it's like some direct experience. So, and also just an interesting journey, which hopefully shows that people can, follow a different story and if they're sitting on an idea, maybe they go and make it happen. So I worked in marketing, online marketing for 10 or so years. And then I always had this dream of opening a restaurant, loved the buzz of restaurants and sort of sitting there, like the delivery, getting there early and watching the deliveries arrive. And then one day I was like, right, I can definitely do this. So, I started my own restaurant business. Some people very kindly sort of believed that I would be good at it or whatever. So we brought it together and we made our restaurants and that lasted for 9 years. So there's lots of experience, tried lots and lots of things. And then as some people will know, or running a tap room is, it's actually quite challenging. It's difficult. You're forced to try lots and lots of things. So you have all that direct experience of bringing in new launches, events, and also using online to drive. So actually we were quite big on Instagram before Instagram got bigger. And in those early days, it was a bit of an unfair advantage for us. And actually in time, it became less, we became less good at it almost as people got better at like reels and stories. And that wasn't so much of my glory days of just being able to put up one picture and say, hey, why don't you come down tonight? But you see what I mean? So it's unpacking this. Anyway, so we did that. And then after I closed the restaurants, I have my own little drinks brand called Bloody Ben's, which is like a Bloody Mary mix. So again, that sort of direct experience of selling it online, but also sort of wholesale and into retailers. And then I worked for a few different food and drink companies. And then a year ago, I went freelance. And then just over sort of 6 months ago, I launched sort of Honor Plate. So when I first went freelance, like fractional, so you'd hire me for like day or half day. And now it's more kind of like project based. So it's kind of like, why don't you come and sort out our emails? That'd be great. And I'll say, okay, go and make it happen. But it's, you haven't got me there sitting there for 8 hours going, hey, so what else are we going to do? Or, or what am I, I've got to find something for Ben to do because we're paying him, So actually, I think it's better for everyone. It's like, here's a very specific project. Here's what you do. And, I've worked with a whole bunch of companies over the last 7 months, including some beer companies. So I work with Umbar Brewery, which are really cool. They're based in Brighton, which is where I live. And if you haven't tried their beers, I'm going to big them up and say you definitely should.
For sure. Massive shout out to Umbar. They're a great bunch of guys. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, great. You know them. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, know them well. Okay. So with that, proven track record of marketing in all different spheres, of course, we're going to be talking more so about the digital realms today. So in your opinion, Ben, what have you seen and do you believe kind of are the common mistakes that breweries are making with their website and with their online sales?
Yeah, well, I guess to some extent, and we're, it's easy to be guilty of, and I've certainly been guilty of it, is we're not kind of like, our online shop is effectively our shop, and in real life, you can kind of sense if someone's not putting enough into it. It's a bit sort of drab. They haven't updated the window display. It's a bit tired. There's lack of energy. And I feel like that is often the case online, or it might be like oh my God, they've released a new beer and you go online, you can't find it. You've got to really hunt around. So it's putting that energy and seeing it as, your actual physical shop. And if it was your physical shop, it's unlikely that you wouldn't have it up to date, that, you wouldn't have anything about the new releases, that you wouldn't be refreshing the display. So it's kind of thinking of in those terms. And then if you think about like the collection pages, they're almost like your aisles or, like the shelving. And again, you'd sort of update those, or if you wanted to pique interest, you'd refresh them from time to time. Or it'd be like Father's Day. All right, well, we put it, in the shop, we put a little one, and online you create like a little collection. So I guess people are often, and because it is an effort, right? But it's lacking some of that energy. And maybe some of that energy which we then spend on our socials, maybe we spend a little bit of that energy also refreshing our website where we're sending all the traffic to and looking to convert, and I think probably keeping an eye on that conversion rate as a guide on, are we doing a good job here? Are we engaging people? So yeah, that would be one.
And look, you touched on it just then. Obviously, a lot of breweries invest a lot of time into social marketing. So they are at some kind of device which gives them the ability to create content or update things. Why do you think it is that they invest so much time into the social side of things, but don't channel some of that into the web stuff, which has more direct returns on bottom line?
Well, I think it's because it's literally in our face. So, we all scroll away on our phones, don't we? Literally all of us, bar a few people, but everyone's there scrolling away. You're there scrolling away in your spare time. You're scrolling away. And so you're seeing stuff all the time. And that's provoking you, thinking, oh, we need to be channeling our energy here. And people will go, hey, look, check out what these guys are doing. Look, let me show you on my, on their Instagram. So that's the conversations. It's not normal that people generally aren't going, hey, have you checked out their website? Come and see what they put on their website. The only times you tend to do that is when you're actually thinking about updating your own website. And then you're kind of like searching your competitors, going, what are they doing? Oh my God, they're so much better than us. Or, those guys in, I don't know, cheese are doing a really good job. Let's go and see what they're doing. So that tends to be the times we don't spend a lot of time doing it. And actually, more often than not, amazingly, we don't even look at our own website very often. And then you log on and go, that is out of date, and you're always a little bit like, oh, I can't believe we've let it slide that far. So I think, again, if you can try and bring down to this sort of shop mindset and opening the shop every day. And so you're like coming in and going, okay, all right, well, how's the shop looking today? And I think if you could do that more often than not, and it doesn't have to be every day, but, even if you did that to check in like once a week, I think you'd find you'd be in a much better place and then just naturally more on top of it. But yes, ultimately it's because it's not in our face in the same way. We don't have people running up going, hey, this is happening, on your website, that doesn't tend to happen very much. So that's when we get, and therefore we're more passive about it. And we let it slide that it's out of date and, weird and something's broken or the picture's not displaying, all this stuff at the same time. But actually, of course, when you're the person coming to purchase and you're looking for the trust signals, and so as soon as you get on there and it's a bit broken or a bad idea, you're like, oh, I don't know, actually. Or maybe they don't really care about me that much that I really want to complete this purchase. And I think so. Yeah, I feel like it's that. And again, intangible. You probably won't realize that's the reason it's silently killing off some of your sales. And you'll get some sales. You're like, well, we get 10 people a week buy online. I guess that's our market. When actually it could be 15, and that extra 5 sales a week actually again adds up to a big difference. They're telling their mates, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, it's mad when you think about it, because especially if breweries are focusing on like a direct to consumer model, the social media will be the introduction some of the times, but they're still going to want to be like, oh, well, I'm not down the road from the tap room. I want to try this beer and I want them to ship it out to me. So naturally, the website is going to be the next port of call. And if it's not, they're going to go to a wholesaler or a distributor that's, has access to that. And same with like emails, I suppose, right? You always want to push it back to the web store at the end of the day to get that final.
Yeah, and it's also like your anchor point, isn't it? Because there again, you can like remind people why they should care about you. What are you doing that's more interesting or worth supporting? And so yeah, basically you get them back to that anchor point and they go, actually, yeah, these guys are great. And sometimes a lovely sort of scene of everyone dancing around the brewery is great, piques your interest, but actually get them into the website and that's the value they do, or blah blah blah. So I think that is exactly missed, and you want to get them in there and then tell your story, but also make it easy for people to then navigate around the website.
Of course. And like you're saying, the idea of it doesn't have to be massively time consuming. You could check in just for a little bit once a week and you're going to keep this machine moving. And I've spoken to other people, like the same thing for email campaigns and stuff. It actually requires a lot less time than keeping your social channels active, just because it's kind of a one and done each and every week. But if someone has gone, all right, yeah, the website is lacking love, I need to give it a little bit of time each week, what are those first things that you'd be going, right, these are the things you need to check and like keep in order each and every time?
Yeah, well, again, collections is obviously one of them. And, why are people buying online? So often it's an occasion has sparked it, hasn't it? So it's like, oh, it's Father's Day coming up. Right, I need to buy some beer. So, like make sure that you've got a Father's Day collection. You might have a little pop up there saying, Father's Day this way, basically. It's, have you got your reviews coming through? Because also, if people have only heard about you a little bit, or they've seen this great social post that you did that again piqued their interest, but then they don't necessarily know you. They might not live in you're not their local brewery, and so it's like, oh, actually, but everyone says their beers are great. Look, I can see here, so that would be a reason to it. And then also think about, I think this is important. Think about the reasons people won't buy from you, and then can you address those? So it's kind of like, people are often very unclear on delivery dates. And that whole thing of like, you've added it to your basket and we're going to tell you when you've really checked out or whatever. And you're like, oh, I just want to know now, actually. I don't want to get that far down the line. And so having a little line of like, standard delivery is this, costs this much, and it takes this long to get to you. And also maybe resist being too optimistic on the delivery times, because you're going to create disappointment. So you're better off, if it's 2 to 3 days, you might just say 3 days, and then surprise and delight if it turns up in 2 days. Do you see what I mean? Like, I think it's better to go down that route, and I'd probably state working days, because again, that's kind of important, because you don't want to overpromise, and especially as people start leaving it late and then think, well, it will arrive on that date because it says, and they'll read 2 days, not 3. Do you see what I mean? So you might want to be careful around that. But yeah, those would be examples.
Yeah, I like the idea, like you say, the collections aspect, because does that work for breweries on a bigger scale? Because not only if they land on the brewery's website, they go, oh, it is Father's Day, I should invest in that. But if they're searching for that or that kind of terminology, that's going to help pull a wider audience through via search engine optimization?
I think so. I mean, I guess search engine people would know better, but you're probably not going to... you're not going to suddenly jump up the rankings so much per se, but you're going to give yourself more of an opportunity to be in that arena. But also, you're being relevant, aren't you? That's the key. And then also that can start to inform the rest of your output. So suddenly, your socials, are going to be around that. Your email is going to be around that. And so suddenly it all pulls all the threads together, and that's always more powerful rather than just being like, well, we've got to do something. So it really helps. So I think that those collections and an overall point I would say is, I really believe that lots and lots of people are going online to buy gifts. because they don't necessarily need to go to your, well, also there's a big reason why they're going to your website. They can buy beer, and as much as your beer might be great, they can buy beer, right? And they can buy it in the shop, they can buy it from other websites, they can buy it from all sorts of places. And so you've got to give them that reason why. And the gifting is because it's quite unique. And so the more you can lean into that, so, you might be like, people are like, well, they could just buy a 6-pack of our best beer. That'd be good for dads. But actually that's, you're not working it hard enough, right? So it's kind of like, look, here's a 6-pack plus a t-shirt, plus a bottle opener, plus a glass. And suddenly that becomes like, great. And we're doing a special price. Whoa, okay, I'm going to buy it. So you're putting it all together. I think that's much more powerful.
Okay, so it's just bundling it all up, so it becomes, I suppose, more experiential again, isn't it? That's something I've been talking to a lot of people about.
Yeah, experiential, but also, well, helping people. You're helping solve the problem, which is kind of like why people buy stuff, right? I've got a problem. I've got to buy my dad something. You have solved my problem. Oh, and I like the price point. I'm going to do it. So I think that is, underestimated, I think, and we forget about it. And again, we're asking people to search around the website. Well, we've got a gifting section. They'll find it, but they won't actually. And if you look at it, they won't. So at the right moment, bring it right up to the fore. So if you've kind of got your menu, put the Father's Day collection right at the top. It only has to be for a week. If you put it right at the top, you might even have it ahead of your bestsellers as an example. Or you might be like, okay, well, I think I want people to go to my Father's Day, then I want bestsellers, as a thing. And then it might be like, or that's, even though you might then have, I don't know, even just gifting, even though it feels like a repeat, but you might just have it because some people are like, well, I'm not here for Father's Day, but let's have a look at the overall gifting thing and see almost like a bigger collection of what you've put there as well.
Yeah, because gifting is more evergreen, isn't it? That's something that could be all round, and people go, yeah, there's a birthday or a celebration of some form. You mentioned just the idea of bestsellers there, actually, which I don't see that often specifically on brewery websites. I see it on Wider, who have a lot of beers on offer. Yeah. But what's the psyche behind having a bestseller section?
Well, again, it's just signposting, right? People are unsure. So, it's like, okay, I've heard about these guys. Oh, they've got 10 beers. Whoa, I don't know. Whereas you're like, this is the one, guys. Everyone buys this one. You're like, okay, I'll try that as my starting point. But if you don't help people, then they're probably going to start thinking, oh, I don't know which one. Oh, look, my phone's going off. Oh, look, some social, blah, blah, blah. They haven't purchased. So again, it's just like, it's the hand holding, it's the suggestion. And again, if you think about shop, right? Or can I help you with anything? Yeah, I need to get some beer. Well, I'll tell you what, these guys do a cracking IPA. This is like their signature one. Have that as a starter. If you like it, they've got a whole load of other styles that you might want to get into, but we recommend you start off with this one. Oh, okay, that's really helpful. I'll take 4-pack or whatever. You see what I mean? So I think that's the psyche of it.
And that just reminded me, I've been sat in tap rooms before where you've got, I don't know, a sister coming in to buy a gift pack for her brother, and they're like, well, what does he like? And the sister doesn't know, or the mother or whoever doesn't know. And, well, they're like, well, these are our most successful ones. And so if you're not the end consumer, it's another way of giving you that little bit more confidence that you're probably going to get it right with this, because a lot of other people enjoy it as well. And
then the conversation is like, oh, I wasn't sure what to get you, Tim, but they said these are the most popular ones. You're like, oh, great. I know they're going to be cracking. Thanks very much. Like, oh, yeah, that sounds great. Or, I'm really into it. So the way the real life conversations actually unfold, at the birthday or whatever it is. Yeah, I wasn't sure, but I know you like, so I asked them, and they suggested these. They're going to be great. Like, oh, perfect. That's the real life. Sometimes you've got to, it's not just all numbers and data. Sometimes it's like, put it into context, and the context actually you already know. People already know this. Oh yeah, I do know that. That is what I say to people. Like same with coffee, right? So there's so many coffees, it can be really, really confusing. It's like, well, actually, this is our house blend. This is what everyone goes for. This is what the cafes who choose our coffee, this is what the one they serve. Oh, right. Well, I love that cafe. If they're choosing it, that's going to be good enough for Uncle Joe. I'm going to go with it, blah, blah, blah. So yes, it's helping people. And that, I think, again, the themes running through this whole conversation are make it easy for people, hold their hand, suggest, nudge, make it sense, think about real life and apply that way you can online.
Yeah. If you think the way your shopper does versus how you operate as a brewer, you're probably going to get closer to a more satisfying end result, aren't you?
Yeah, and actually, funny enough, so that also kind of ties into like, I've seen a couple of great posts recently about mindset of SEO, and we're all sort of siloed in like beer or whatever it is, the thing that we have. but actually it's thinking wider. And again, how are people actually shopping for the stuff? So it's kind of like barbecue season. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but barbecue season beer, but it could be like, these are our best beers for barbecue, in a guide. Or it might be, I don't know, even picnics, or seaside beers or whatever it might be. And then again, also by going down that route and creating a little collection, if you want to, helping people, like, here's our best seaside beers or whatever. Oh, that's interesting. And actually we paired up with the local snack, crisp company. They're bringing some crisp or whatever it might be, chips for our American listeners. I'm going to put myself completely off piece now. I've said that, but basically bring it together, right? And then suddenly you've also created yourself a little campaign. So suddenly you've got your email, you've got what you're going to put on your website, you've got your socials. So it all falls, all hangs off this one thing, and that's where it becomes, again, quite simple, quite powerful, all from a little idea.
Yeah, I can completely relate to that. So I'm off to Download Festival later on this week. I would have been in it for people listening to this back on the podcast, but I was looking through the rules and it's like, okay, you can't bring any bottles. It's got to be cans. You can't take any more than 24 cans. I was like, someone out there is missing a trick. This could have been the Download Brewery bundle. Like, that's someone's correct. Like, what's the festival beers? And if someone snapped a photo with them at the event, next time we'll send you a 10% off voucher or something, just because you're tapping into that ritual and the kind of the day-to-day movements of people versus, oh yeah, I just want a beer. It's like, no, I want a beer for this occasion.
Totally right. And actually, I do also think you've hit on something there, which, whether anyone's brave enough to do it, but I think it's a really nice idea of, let's just say, in your little area, there's 3 breweries or whatever. Is there a world where you can come together and collaborate and be like, look, we're going to sell and you could all agree to do it. And you could all agree the price, right? And it's like, it's 20 quid. We're all going to do it, but it's the local, it's the Sussex beer bundle, and you're all supporting each other, and you all get like 4 beers in each or whatever. Is there something lovely in that, and working together and being like, because for the customer, however he ends up finding you, he's like, oh wow, because I like all these different breweries and they've all come together and I can buy it in one purchase. Is there something quite powerful in that? And I wonder whether anyone's brave enough to experiment with that. But I feel like that would be a good thing. You're all winning in a way, because you're all, as long as you all mutually agree to do it, you don't undercut each other.
Yeah, it's kind of like a cooperative approach.
Exactly, and you're like, well, look, we'll actually buy the beer from you, so we'll buy 50 cans from you at whatever price. You work it all out. But I think there is something in that, and then you're doing something again of value and making it interesting and better for your for people looking around, because that is also a barrier for buying online versus buying in a shop. So, you go to the bottle shop. It's like, and again, think about people's purchasing and then think about why they're not buying online from you. So I'm going to get 2 of those. I'm going to get 2 from them. And so, are you brave enough to actually recreate that online and say, well, actually, we stock some of our brewery mates beers. And you could extend it further. I was just using the local analogy to give it more context, but there is, you might, it feels a bit brave, but why not give it a go? I think that's another way of using your online shop, and maybe some snacks in there as well, and seeing how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I do recall there's a brewery down in Devon, the name escapes me, but I was on their website a good couple of months ago, but they obviously had their beers, but then they had a lot of other local produce, and they had, I think there was cider from a local brewery and spirits. So they wasn't direct competition, but if you wanted a taste of the area, like that's a great way to do it, I suppose.
Yeah, and actually, again, just like SEO, so someone looking for the local cheese or the local snacks, they might well end up hitting your website, and then they're like, oh great, well, I'll buy a couple of beers, and you've bundled it together for me. I think there's something in there. And actually, I've been in tap rooms where they do have guest beers, quite regularly. So it's only using that same mindset to online, and then you're giving more people reason to log onto your website and buy.
Before we move on to talking about email, because it's closely connected to the website side of things, earlier on you talked about testimonials on the website. And I bundle testimonials in with things like award badges, because they're all parts of like what I call brand authority. Like, okay, there's ranking, they've been recognized by an external person or board or whatever it is. But to me personally, I always take a lot of these with a pinch of salt. When it comes to a testimonial, I'm like, did someone really write that? And then for awards, personally, I've got my opinions on that. But do you have any guidance or thoughts around best use and application when it comes to awards, testimonials, and kind of outside accreditation?
I mean, actually, so it's a thing for me. So I've always personally been of a similar mindset, and then haven't done enough in that area. So if you go to Bloody Ben, so there are reviews, but anyway, but I don't execute it well enough on my own side. But then I see the stats, right? 83%, 93%, are looking for basically reviews and trust, and that people will always do their research beforehand. So I wonder whether we end up being in the minority, or actually, even though we're a little bit skeptical, it still does the same job. You're still like, yeah, but look at it, there are 1,000 people are giving them 4.9. Actually, are they wrong? So I think you're right, the skepticism. There's also, I was talking to some people, and I can't quite remember the name, but it's basically like, I don't know, like We Are Humans, or something like that, Only Humans. But basically, it's a video review site. And of course, you can't fake it because you're watching the people have their review. Yeah, well, you could, theoretically, you've got to trust that someone's been sent your beer, opened it and gone, wow, I really like this beer. So it's kind of like reactions to it. And so it's a customer review reactions on video. And that's quite powerful because it's, the written word, especially with ChatGPT, we could ask it to do 100 different customer reviews and hey, presto, you've got them. Do you know what I mean? So I think there is something around that. And I guess also that is why user generated content in general. And also, if you think about influencers, that is all part of that. And so I think we're wrong to ignore it. And actually, there was another stat recently, and it was basically like awards in wine labels and on supermarket shelves, and the pickup rate, if you have like a gold star sat on it, is so much greater than if you don't. And so again, it's kind of like, well, is that a great reward or whatever? But I think in practice you're better off doing it, and sort of almost, I don't know, why do we not do it? Is it a bit cringe? Is it a bit skeptical? I don't know what it is, but I think you've got to try and drop that and lean into it as much as possible. And I think you'll be rewarded. Again, sometimes it can be intangible, like a lot of this stuff. So you can't necessarily go, the reason why we're converting better. So you've got to kind of believe in what you're doing, because you won't necessarily put a direct, like, that's the day that we started doing it. But there's no doubt people need reassurance, and it's trust is the biggest barrier to buying online. So everything you can do to increase that trust, you improve your conversion.
Yeah. I really believe in kind of the Google review mechanism. So when someone searches for your brew and the reviews pop up there, I think that's a sign of like, okay, someone real's created it. It's almost when I go onto a brewery website and it's been like a nicely styled carousel, and there's no like, even if it was actually like an embedded review system from Google and it had the Google logo and stuff in there, I think I would believe it more. It just doesn't feel as falsified.
Yeah. It's just the 4 very polished. Excellent. There is also, of course, within that, again, it's brave. It feels brave to do it. Put in a slightly crappy one, slightly negative. Are you brave enough to be like, I'm going to put a, but if it's all, there is a thing of like, if it's all 4.9, you're like, oh, really? Whereas actually the odd one, or being able, or not just hiding, and so it only displays 5 stars, I think is another one. But mostly, check out who you're using for your review platform. But if you can bring in a direct feed, I think that solves what you're saying, and it's better than the shiny, lovely carousel which has been done in Canva or whatever it might be, and it's flawless.
Exactly. Okay, so let's talk about then connecting the email side of things, because a lot of breweries will go, yes, we send a weekly email. It talks about the events that are coming up, or we've got a new beer that comes out. But things like automated email flows and kind of those kind of guided journeys that you get on email, I think are under leveraged. But a fair bit about that. Help educate us, please.
Well, I think basically online email should represent about 30% of your sales. So if it's not doing that, that's your first indicator of like, oh, okay, well, that's, that means I've got room to improve. And room to improve is through the automation, because the idea of automation is that the email basically comes at a time that makes sense. And therefore, whereas your newsletter, you're like, well, we send it on Fridays at 4 p.m. But that's a very specific time, which only, it fits your schedule, doesn't necessarily fit everyone else's. So automation can obviously pops up at the right time, or more likely to pop up at the right time is a thing, because it's triggered off some kind of behavior. So that's one powerful bit. The other point is, whilst we say we might do a weekly newsletter, in practice, do we often get something, life happens, right? And we don't send it, and suddenly it's been 3 weeks, and then it's like, oh God, I haven't sent one for 3 weeks. What's another week? And suddenly it's 6 weeks, and then suddenly we don't send emails. And so the nice thing about automation is that's happening no matter what. you set it up, you put your effort in up front, and then you just let it go, basically. And so when life does get in the way, it's cool because this stuff is still happening out there anyway. So you're still engaging people, you're still reminding them that you exist, you're giving them little tiny nudges to come back. And that's why it's going to work for you. So when I say, like, when you do inevitably get started, also the other thing about it is, we're all worried about don't send too many emails, but actually the opposite is true. Actually, you want to send more emails because it's more nudges, but you don't want to send them for the sake of it or have nothing to say in it. But how do you do that? Well, again, automation is the way, because whilst it might not be sending to absolutely everyone, it's sending to little segments at the right time. So you're, in the grand picture of things, you are sending more emails, but you're not sending them to everyone. So it's much more targeted, basically. Yeah, and so and that greater number will lead to more conversions and more sales.
So what are some common automations that breweries should look at setting up then? Because I think they probably appreciate, okay, we can get emails to be sent automatically, but when?
Yeah.
What should be step 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah, well, obviously, it's like a welcome series, but don't just go with one email. Make it, I guess the clue's in the name, the series. So make a little series and really tell your story. And I think also this is often your chance to really land the why. It's like, why care about us, or what's our story? Where did we come from? Like, well, like, you guys are pretty successful now, but it's like, well, hang on, no, we started off in our garage, blah blah blah. Tell that story, and do that over a series of emails. Don't try and get it all into one email either, because it'd be so long. So split that into like 4 or 5 emails. Also, if you're really get into it, you could set that over like the course of like a few months. So it's just dripping in information, key values. So welcome series is really important. Basically, explain to people why they should care. And then the one which I would find the most powerful always is this idea of a time to top up replenishment email. And if you use something like Klaviyo, there's a little AI expected date of next order. So you load that up, and basically when it thinks, based on behavior, someone's probably due a top up, you drop them an email, and it's like, well, you're right, I have run out of that lovely beer, thank you very much, and yes, I would like to get some. So that would be a one, because it's a timely nudge, and then you can set a little series around it. So again, you like, email one's just a nudge, then you might give it another week, and then you maybe drop in a discount, because it's kind of like, well, they've missed the date, I've given them a nudge, maybe they need a little bit more now, and it's really, really effective, and that will end up being your like second best performer, basically. And then you can do other little things like, if someone is a regular purchaser but they don't have a subscription with you, maybe you want to automate, on that third or that fifth purchase, maybe a little, hey, by the way, you don't have to log on every time, you can just set up a subscription. And I think that might work for you too. And then obviously there's the classics, like we know about abandoned cart, but again, have you just got it on one email? Are you just using the template? The template's got normally quite clunky language, doesn't quite fit, so make a bit more of effort, maybe put in some testimonials in there, because really they've abandoned. So what was it a trust thing? Can you put a line in there saying, look, I'm Tim, the founder, and I'd love to know why you haven't bought, in a less aggressive way than that. But you know what I'm saying? Like, basically offer yourself up. And I think overall, again, even though it's automated, it's this opportunity to show you're human, you're probably a small business, and that you care and you're really interested. And so invite people into that and be like, look, it's us here in the brewery. Like, we'd love to know, or like, this, we're making this beer at the moment. Is there another beer you'd like to see? Let us know.
I think that abandoned cart email, there was one that I saw doing the rounds, it must have been on LinkedIn, which was Liquid Death's abandoned cart. So obviously the very alternative water, well, the beverage, very popular in the States, not so much here in the UK, unfortunately. But it was a case of like, are you okay? Like, you were just typing on the website a minute ago, like, have you dropped down dead? Do we need to send anyone to your house? And I just thought it was so refreshing in terms of their approach. It's going to make you stop and go, yeah, fair enough. All right, maybe I will go back to the cart.
Exactly. Rather than, good news, we've saved your basket. And you're like, is it that good news?
Left for a reason. But this comes back to just thinking about the human aspect again, and where they are in their mindset, what they're doing, and working into their patterns in their life, right? If you find the right times and those right trigger points, there's probably an automation that's going to help you double down on squeezing a beer in there.
I think also, isn't it really interesting, this conversation, which I didn't have planned. Well, I planned some of the conversation. What I mean is what we're really coming into, though, again, is this whole thing about human in a world where things are becoming much more automated, and we're literally talking about automations, but it's all coming back to human and connections and what people actually do in their lives, and can you try and interject yourself, be useful and solve a problem at the right moment.
You also mentioned the kind of almost the onboarding flow. So a brewer is successful enough to get an email address from someone browsing their website, and so you say split that out across a couple of emails. So would that be, the first one is a thanks for signing up, this is a little bit about us. Then there's one which like, these are our most popular beers, this is a bit about our tap room is in the next one, and these are some of our commonly asked questions. And then the fifth one's like, here's a thanks so much for sticking around, not unsubscribing like we know you probably do a lot of other people, here's 10% off kind of thing. Would that be a logical flow?
A totally logical flow. The only thing I would do probably, if you're doing an offer, which again, if you want people to sign up to the newsletter, and also it feels like it's kind of an expected thing these days. So I would sort of over-index on email one being around that discount, which they signed up for the newsletter, because that's the main reason they've got in there. And take away, I mean, if you can, I mean, I would take away the double opt-in, just no friction, and also absolutely no time restriction. Don't go, well, we'll send it in an hour. Like, set the settings so that people get it as soon as possible. They go check their inbox, or you can have it on the success message, thanks for signing up, and then it has the code that you need. Because that's what, anyway, so that's the primary reason for people doing that. So don't then spend too long on the story, but you know, a little introduction, then the next email, go deep into the story, like why you set this thing up, what it's all about, why people should care, and then, as you said, basically, and then like almost like the fifth email, let's say you split it out, and people who haven't yet you made a purchase, you're like, don't forget your discount, and you'll find that's quite effective. Don't send, you know, make sure you put in the sort of conditional split, so it has the logic in there to check whether someone's made the purchase, because it's always quite annoying, because then also some people are like, oh great, I'll go, oh, I've already used it, but you sent me an email saying I've got this discount, but now it's, you know, and you're like, no, you've used it, well, why did you send me the email? So, you know, put in the logic to stop that from happening.
So you talk about logic and talk about automations, and potentially for a lot of brewers out there going, this sounds great, but I don't have a clue how to do any of it.
Yeah.
What software would you direct them to? What's the easiest to use to really get some simple automations up and running?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I would go towards like there's Klaviyo, or a slightly cheaper version which is as good as Omnisend. So Klaviyo or Omnisend, and then there's variations within that. But I would, you know, they're set up to do e-commerce through email, and so that's their purpose in life, right? So go for them rather than you know, I don't want to do down on people, but MailChimp is a bit more clunky, and it's a bit more kind of like that's for newsletters per se. So I think, you know, I would go towards you know, like a Klaviyo and Omnisend, go for them, and it's pretty intuitive, and they've got all the templates, it's got loads of help, and so I think with a DIY attitude, you'd be up and running pretty quick. Or even a team member, you're like, look, mate, I need you to look after emails. With a little, you know, give them the space to explore and some time to invest in experimenting, you know, that would do it. Also, I think the sense of like, you don't need to chase perfection, especially on emails. Like, actually really basic, like logo, headline, engaging picture, some words of context, and a lovely button saying basically buy now. That is going to work. So don't think, oh, I've got to hire a designer. You don't need to. Sorry, designers. But it would be lovely if you did. But I think that, you know, your DIY attitude, make stuff happen in the same way you made a brewery happen. Guess what? You can make an email happen. And also, you know, it's this idea of like return on effort. So what could you do today that's going to bring you in sort of $1 to $5 grand per month? Probably, if you sorted out your emails, you're into that space. Whereas not many other things are probably going to help you achieve that. So that's why it's almost like, right, well, it does feel a bit daunting, but that is quite a lot of extra cash I'm missing out on, and that would make a real difference, and that's what I want to do. So that would be your motivation to find the way of like, why am I doing this? Or like, as you load it up, go, oh, I don't like any of this. And as I say, it's pretty intuitive, so you'll be up and running. If not, there's people that can help. maybe myself, but there are.
But you invest the time, you get it right once, and then it's there. It's just working for you, so you're not having to constantly nurture it to some extent.
That's the really nice thing. And then obviously try and do some updates from time to time, because you will. Also, there is one little trick sometimes, so you can have like a lovely little product feed will come in and show like this is what's this is what's on the website, and directly puts into the website. But if you change the picture, you can find that this is actually a downside. It won't always go through on the feed, so you need to check in on that. So if you change your main picture on your product, there's a good chance the automated email doesn't pick up on the change, and then it goes to a broken link. So check in on that, because when you get that email yourself as a customer, and you will see broken links for images, you're like, wonder why that is, and it'll be because of that you've changed a picture. So that's one to just be careful of. But also that can then be quite a good time, because you can look at your copy with new eyes. I haven't looked at this for 3 months. Oh, we shouldn't really say that anymore, or the tap room isn't open on Mondays, we should update that, all these kind of bits. So yeah, I think that's a good refresh point.
Yeah, a bit of housekeeping, like you say, if you're going to do your website once every week, you're going to check those, automations once every month or something, I suppose, just to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
But what about, now there's an obvious metric of success if your emails are working well, because people are buying your beer. But are there any early indicators that these brewers should be looking out for, going, because maybe they're not immediately buying beer, but you have piqued interest? Yeah, so what kind of signals are they looking for?
Well, sometimes it's not necessary. Yeah, it's not necessarily the sales, is it? You will, if you've got your ears open, you will hear people go, oh, I liked your newsletter. You wrote, I got your newsletter. That was interesting. I thought that was good. Oh, you guys are doing that beer, aren't you? You're doing that beer thing. You're like, oh, wow, I didn't know that you would have known about that. So that can be like almost like these soft signals that stuff's happening. Obviously, open rate is a good indicator, because, you're sending stuff and people will know. You're like, oh, okay, well, people are opening. So not necessarily buying there and then, but they're opening it. And again, it can be like the intangibles. Like, we run beer tastings on a Monday night, and we normally get 4 people, but now we get 15 people every time, and it's like, well, maybe the email is part of that. Do you see what I mean? So it may not be sales per se, but it can be these softer signals and indications and slightly more intangible things happening out there. And is the list growing? Are the unsubscribes not horrific? That probably would suggest that you're doing a good thing.
Yeah, if people don't want it anymore, then you need to change what you're doing naturally.
I think, if you notice like really high, you're like, or your list is really, really rubbish, and then maybe you don't want to send to all those people, like, so. I mean, it's difficult, right? It's because sometimes in the company, people will say, we want to grow our newsletter list, and a natural way to go and do that can be through a competition, but the quality of people you pick up may not be that great. So you kind of get the headline hit, and you can sort of say, well, we've got 1,000 new subscribers, but they don't act and behave like your other 1,000 subscribers. So it's not as meaningful. And so I wonder now, I'm maybe not quite so keen on that as a thing, even though I've definitely done it in the past. I've definitely suggested it to people, but I wonder now whether I'm so keen on suggesting that as a route, or it's kind of got to be, I don't know. Or, not look to get 1,000. It's more like, well, we've got 100 people. We know they're actually really interested in what we do. So yeah, it's different. I don't feel like it's changed a little bit now. It's more about the deliverability of emails. So actually it is important to get open rates, because then you don't get marked as spam, or you don't go into the promo tabs as much. So it's been smarter around that. And so sometimes it's not like our list is 1 million or 100,000 or whatever. Actually, it might be 3,000 super engaged people is way more powerful, and also you'll see that reflected in the open rates will be much higher.
Exactly. And realistically, what would you prefer? Even 1,000 really engaged buyers who keep on coming back to you month on month or every other month, or 10,000 people who just go, oh, that's the email, and it goes in the trash bin.
And also, it'll cost you that little bit more per month as well. So that's another, so it's kind of like, it's almost like this vanity metric of like, we've got this many email people, but
So let's bring this to a nice wrap then, Ben. We've talked about the quick wins on the website. We've talked about how the email automations and flows can amplify sales, but also pick up after people have been to the website and made a purchase. Are there any other places in the funnel that breweries need to be aware of because they're kind of losing out in those spaces and they need to stick a thumb in the leak?
Stick a thumb in the leak. Well, I think it's more. I feel like it's more everything we've discussed. Do you see what I mean? It's kind of like addressing all of those points. So it's kind of like, think of it as like your shop. Think of how people are, and then think about the reasons why people aren't buying. And then I guess if there was one thing that I would really lean towards, it's really, if you can be almost like the best at gifting, I can absolutely guarantee you'll see more sales, but also you're going to see more return people. You're going to create this thing, so is it do you invest some time finding out a way of adding a greeting card to it with a personalized note and all this kind of stuff, because that is going to be why a lot of people are buying online. So it's this thing as well, they don't necessarily need to buy online. I think we forget that, right? That we put our website when our website is a bit rubbish, but people don't need to buy. They can also buy your beer from a shop, so that they don't need to do it online per se. So it's kind of like creating those reasons why they might want to, and gifting will be a big part of that, or it's creating that scarcity. And I think that's also where like a website can be this really good, useful tool for you. So sales may never be massive for you, but there can be this great learning thing. So it might be like, well, we wondered whether people would be into sour beers for us. So we did, we did a small brew of them, and there's a few hundred cans available online only, and you start to learn from that. And it was like, well, actually, we were right. No one does want them, or they sold out in 24 hours. Hello, we're onto something here. Let's do some more of that. So sometimes it can be, the reasons why you have a website, and it might not be it's because it's going to be bigger than any other, but it's a nice channel. And also there is a thing, what's the world taught us over the last 5 or 6 years is that it's pretty insane, and things that we couldn't possibly imagine are happening. And so I think it's right to keep a sort of engaged online database going and ticking over, because, God forbid there was another sort of lockdown, but suddenly it's going to explode. And actually, if you've been nurturing that whole online side and got all your automations, all of these really strong foundations in place, then you're going to pick back up much more quickly than someone else might.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Ben, this has been super valuable. You have delivered on what we talked about, those small, scrappy moves. So thank you so much. If people want to connect with you, if they want to, chat a little bit more and understand any other pointers that you might have, where's the best place to reach out and engage with you?
I think if you come and find me on LinkedIn, or if you just drop me an email, so it's like ben@onaplategrowth.com, and just drop me an email. Hopefully I'm friendly. I'll reply.
Brilliant. Okay, so find Ben on LinkedIn or drop him an email, everyone. And for those of you who have been listening, who have tuned in today, again, I truly appreciate you taking the time. I know you're all very busy. And for those of you listening to this in the future, yes, this is past Tim talking to future listeners. Thank you, everyone. You rock. If you want more episodes, just search Branding for Breweries in all your favorite streaming platforms. See, there, I'm human. I make mistakes, much like muting myself at the beginning of the conversation. Everyone, you rock. Have a great week and see you all soon. Bye-bye.